For more on this, let's bring in New York Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, as well as the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Staggering numbers there, as reported by Alex Hogan, a 400% increase in apprehensions. And that doesn't tell us how many people escaped apprehension, Congresswoman.
No, that's absolutely correct, and obviously that was very emotional for me, as my mom is a Cuban refugee herself. But what we have to understand is that when my mother came here, there were protocols in place that were followed. Right now, there is no protocol, there is no process. It just seems that it's a completely open border, and it's gotten completely out of control. And I visited there about a month ago and saw firsthand that our CBP agents are being overrun by the cartel and smugglers that are bringing these individuals and making about $500 million a month doing it. So it's a very dangerous situation. It's not just a humanitarian crisis, but it's also a national security crisis. And I've urged President Biden personally, after the State of the Union, to address this issue, to return back to the protocols that were put in place by President Trump. He had stemmed the flow of the illegal migration. And yes, we should be working together to try to modernize and streamline our immigration system. But we can't do any of that if we do not stop the legal flow that is occurring right now.
Well, what is it at the Biden administration that has them not continuing, I guess, to look the other way as this migrant surge goes on?
No, it's unconscionable that they have abdicated their responsibility to secure our nation's borders, because we know, and they know at this point, that the cartels are running the show, and it is a complete criminal enterprise that is operating this way. And as they're diverting the attention of the CBP, there's actually a bunch of other nefarious activity occurring at the open parts of our border, including gun trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. And so this is something that has to be addressed. They can't continue to ignore this. It's a very dangerous situation for everyone involved. Those migrants who are being transported, the American citizens who live in our communities, and the cost that it's coming to, not just to the American citizens. His answer has been so far to give more money to corrupt governments in Honduras and Guatemala. And that is something that should be concerning. But just today, they announced that they want to give another $2 billion to house these migrants. And remember, we have American cities across our country that are unfortunately suffering greatly with homeless epidemics. We have American citizens that are struggling, seniors that are continuing to try to make ends meet. And the amount of wasteful spending that is coming from this administration, when all they have to do is roll back the executive orders he put in place in January 20th, go back to the migrant protocols that were put in place by President Trump, and return cooperation with the three nations to our south, that we're cooperating under the Trump administration to try to stem the flow.
Well, another executive order that the president made soon after taking office was to stop oil and gas leasing on federal lands. We saw with the Colonial oil pipeline shutdown this week that this nation is on the razor's edge when it comes to fuel supplies. Do you think that this crisis will create any reason for change in that approach at the administration?
Yes, the cancellation of the pipeline, as well as the cyber attack, was certainly the reason why we're seeing these skyrocketing costs at the gas station. It's just one of many problems that we're seeing as a result of the policies put in place by this administration. The idea that they're paying individuals more to stay home than to return to work, discouraging people to be productive citizens, is having a major issue on our supply chain. We're seeing tremendous increase in costs, everything from lumber to agriculture to gasoline. And if you look at states like New York, the Democratic policies there, they want to double the gas tax, increasing it to $1 per gallon. So really, really dangerous policies that we're seeing. The reckless borrowing and spending we're seeing from the Biden administration is also leading to inflation, which is a contributing factor as well. So all of this, all these executive orders that he has put in place in his first 100 days have led already, we're seeing the results results of that. And I'm hoping that they're going to pay attention to this and try to reverse some of these things. You know, just because you don't like President Trump doesn't mean you should be reversing policies that were actually working, that were leading to low unemployment, that were actually leading to the cost of goods and gas going down. So I think it's very reckless. I don't understand it, but I certainly urge the White House administration to take a second look at some of these policies and revisit the need to have domestic production and invest in cybersecurity and other infrastructure projects. That's where the money should be going. That's what we should be talking about when we talk about infrastructure investment, not all sorts of other things that has nothing to do with transportation or infrastructure.
We noted that you're on Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in the House. A number of Republican senators met with President Biden this week. They didn't announce any agreement. Apparently, they presented their sort of wish list, their ideas for what the president could do in terms of infrastructure and what Republicans in Congress would go along with. Where do you see the bill going? That the president, the proposal that the president has put forward, that $2 trillion infrastructure bill, does it have a chance of passing the U.S. Congress?
Well, certainly not with bipartisan support, and I don't believe it has a chance of passing even with just Democratic support at this point, unless they, of course, look to change the rules as they did with the pandemic relief package. Look, I think that transportation infrastructure is the one area where we could pass overwhelmingly bipartisan support package. But the president has to be serious about working with us and also standing up to the radical left who have tried to hijack this proposal and turn it into a radical, Green New Deal that AOC and the socialist movement is pushing. So if he's really serious about coming together, we can certainly pass something. It would probably it'd have to be something that's focused on true infrastructure, roads, bridges, tunnels, airports, seaports, making sure that we solidify our infrastructure like the pipeline, so we make sure that what we saw happen last week does not happen again. Broadband is something that I know that many of the members are interested in as well. That is what we believe should be the focus right now, because we need to, number one, keep the spending of this bill down, and number two, we just need to make sure that we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing, what the taxpayers expect for us to upgrade and modernize our existing infrastructure.
New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, thanks.
Thank you.
The top county prosecutors are taking